to the Considering Cannabis podcast, which is an ICCM production. My name is Professor Kylie O'Brien. Now, the ICCM is the International College of Cannabinoid Medicine, and it's an online learning platform for healthcare practitioners to learn all about the evidence base of medicinal cannabis. So to learn more, go to www.iccm.co. We have a free foundation course that you can sign up to and over 50 videos in our video library. So my guest today is Nakamwi and she's a pharmacist from Zambia. Now, Nakamwi joined the Ministry of Health in Zambia in 2011 as an intern. And the following year, she passed her professional licensing exams, and that enabled her to be registered as a practicing pharmacist. So she's since worked in a number of different places, in first, second and third level hospitals across the country, and occasionally also locally as a retail pharmacist as well. Now, she's currently pursuing a Master of Science in Pharmaceutics, and her dissertation has recently been submitted for examination. So welcome, Nakamwi. What I'd like to do is start with perhaps you telling me a bit about Zambia, because I don't know much about Zambia at all.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Professor Kylie. So I'm from Zambia. It's a country in Africa. It's located in the central, lower, southern central part of Africa. So it's a beautiful country. There's tropical climate there. We experience 2 seasons basically in a year. And it's very, very diverse in terms of ethnicity. We've got 73 ethnic groups.
Wow.
So yes, 73 ethnic groups with a diverse culture as well as linguistics. So majority of the local language stems from the Bantu-speaking group, from Central Africa. So that's basically it about Zambia. Oh, and it's also home to the 7th wonder of the world, Victoria Falls.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes.
And what's the population approximately?
So we are around 16 million, around 16 million. Last the stats were updated.
Wow, okay. So what sparked your interest in cannabis? Now, the reason I contacted Nakamwi originally was that I read a review article that she'd published, and it was a brief review on the use of cannabis as a treatment option for local inflammation in peripheral tissue. But she's also published another paper which I found, which was Topical Cannabis for Wound Pain, a case series. So what made you get interested in cannabis?
Okay, so I've always been interested in traditional alternative medicines because the use of traditional medicines is quite widespread in Africa, in Zambia, to be specific. Yes, a good number of the population access their primary healthcare needs from traditional medicines. Okay. So yes, so my maternal grandmother was also, God rest her soul, she passed now. She was also very much involved in traditional use or plant use of medicines for primary health care. So yes, so I first learned about the use of cannabis from her, as should swear by it. It's used among other uses, of course, as a treatment for otitis media in children, as well as as well as treating external hemorrhoids. Okay, so so in 2017 there was a buzz in the country around legalizing the medicinal use of cannabis. I remember at the time, and I was thinking about enrolling for my master's program in pharmaceutics because I'm interested in that branch of pharmacy. So I remember so there was this buzz about the cannabis and legalizing it. Of course, the country, even up to now, is still split into half. There are proponents who want the use of medicinal cannabis to be legalized. And then, of course, there's the more reserved or conservative part of the population who are not really in support. Okay, so my background in terms of my grandmother, my maternal influences, my maternal grandmother influences, and also what was going on at the time in 2017 when I was thinking about going pursuing my MSc. So that sort of made me think about cannabis, like, okay, what's with the buzz? There must be something here. So I started looking into the scientific evidence now, because that was just, those were anecdotal claims that I knew about, yes. So I started looking into it, and yes, that sort of sparked my interest, and there's a wealth of knowledge out there, you know, in terms of the efficacy of cannabis and for various ailments, not just the otitis media and the inflammatory type of ailments.
So has it got a long history of use of cannabis? You know, I'm talking sort of hundreds of years of use in Zambia.
Yes, there is a history, though it's not as widespread because it's because of access and also the legal issues associated with the use of cannabis. So it's not as widespread, but like in rural areas, those people who do have access to cannabis use it, but secretly. You know, so yes, there is a long-standing history, but it's not something that is talked about freely because of the legal implications of possession and use of cannabis.
Right. So obviously, recreational use or adult use of cannabis is illegal in Zambia, right? And
yes, it is
still
illegal.
Medical use is still not legalized. Is that correct as well?
So it's not legalized, but there is a move in terms of policy direction towards legalizing, not the medicinal use, but it's more legalizing the distribution, the export, and the import. It's very silent in terms of the medicinal use. What would it take, or what classification, what class of prescribers or healthcare practitioners can prescribe and for what conditions? It's very silent. The law is very silent on that. That is the proposed law. But there are clear guidelines on the importation, the distribution, the cultivation of cannabis. So in terms of, you go ahead.
No, go on.
Okay, so I was saying that the law does provide for the importation and distribution, but it's silent on the actual use of it as a medicinal agent.
Right, so that's kind of interesting legislation if you're allowed to import it and distribute it, but they're not sort of saying what you can do with it. Are any of the hospitals actually using it, or are there research projects going on? I mean, what's happening if they're bringing, you know, cannabis in? What are they actually doing with it? Or is it just that they haven't tested that out yet? They've got the legislation in place, but no one's done anything with it.
So the legislation is in place, but it has not been enacted yet. Yes. So it's in the background. So no, there aren't any institutions that are using cannabis. Even the cultivation or the exportation, that hasn't actually taken off because the legislation hasn't been enacted. But that is the conversation around the legislation that is being presented.
So what are the timelines, do you think, for medicinal use, for example, being allowed if you've got, the import legislation in place? How long do you think it'll be before medicinal use will be legal?
Oh, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to really answer specifically. specifically, because even the legislation in terms of the distribution, I think will only come into full effect probably 2022.
Oh, yes.
Then, of course, beyond that, there are changes that will have to take place, particularly in the training institutions, to speak to this new legislation. So that would be the first step. So in terms of timelines, probably maybe in the next 5 or 10 years.
True. And I guess, so are any of the research institutes researching it at all, or are they not allowed to yet?
Well, to my knowledge, I am not aware of any research going on specifically with regards to cannabis. However, legislation as well does provide for research and scientific use. So yes, so in terms of knowing if there is any clear research going on, especially funded by the government, I'm not aware of any such.
So what about hemp as a crop? So, you know, the cultivars of cannabis that are less than 0.3% THC, they're taller plants, they're grown for their fibre and the use of the seeds. You know, for example, are there any plans in Zambia to have legislation that allows hemp for industrial uses rather than necessarily the medicinal uses, for example?
Yes, so there is also another act, the Hemp Act of 2021, that is also been enacted. So so it's also been enacted again, similar to the Cannabis Act. It will come into full effect during the course of 2022. However, with regards to certain hemp products, there are some that are actually on the market that are registered with regulatory bodies. But these ones are specifically the cosmetic products, you know, the hair products that have hemp in them.
So from hemp seed oil, you mean, in cosmetic products? Yeah.
Yes, the hemp seed oil and also some of the plant parts. So in cosmetic products, yes, we have those that are registered and people can access them in pharmacies and drugstores.
So when you're talking about cosmetic products, are there any that contain CBD or just hemp seed oil?
Just the hemp, the hemp, no CBD, no THC.
Okay. So with this new Hemp Act coming into play and the separate Cannabis Act, under the Hemp Act, will farmers be able to use the flowers from the hemp cultivars? So we know that you can make CBD oil from hemp cultivars. And indeed, the Farm Bill 2008 in the US came in and it redefined hemp, and it included some of the constituents, including CBD. So basically that meant that you could make CBD oil from hemp cultivars. Is that going to happen in Zambia, or is it quite sort of strictly, if it's a hemp cultivar, you're only using, you know, the stalk and leaves for the fibre and you can't use the flower, or will you be allowed to use the flower? Do you know the level of detail? Okay,
I'm not so clear on which plant parts. However, the category in terms of the classification of what plants, what cannabis cultivars will fall under the Hemp Act and which ones will fall under the Cannabis Act is basically on the quantity of the THC.
That's right.
So yes, so anything that is less than 0.3% dry weight in terms of 0.3% dry weight composition of THC, that will fall, all those products or cultivars will fall under the Hemp Act. And then THC with a larger proportion of dry weight, then those cultivars will fall under the Cannabis Act.
Okay. Yeah. So look, I think in many countries you often get the general public who are the ones who know more about cannabis than the doctors and healthcare practitioners. Is it, do you sense that there's a drive from the public that cannabis medicines should become legal?
Yes, so like I said initially, the country is split into two. So the opponents are, of course, the part of the population that are concerned about the negative health impacts and the fear of illicit use also just blowing out of proportion. And then, of course, for the other half, the proponents are more appreciative of the therapeutic uses, and they are, I suppose, more knowledgeable. Those are the people that are supporting or pushing for the use of medicinal cannabis. And I think because of the voices of the proponents, that's what has led to even the change in legislation. Yes, to allow for the use and also to provide for clear guidelines in terms of regulation and how best this wonderful plant can be used for its therapeutic effects without while minimizing the social negative effects.
So are there other African countries that are in a similar, I guess, state to where Zambia is in terms of legalising medical use? Are other countries ahead or behind? I don't know much about Africa, so...
Okay, so I know there are some countries that are close to Zambia in terms of geographical location that are ahead. Like I know Zimbabwe are cultivating medicinal cannabis. Lesotho as well. South Africa also. Yes, so I think each country is dealing with this drive to legalize medicinal cannabis differently. Each country is at different stages. So Zambia, we are almost there. At least the legislation is the starting point.
Yes.
Of course, yes. Lessons will be learned, and obviously other guidelines in terms of the licensing schedule and also training for health practitioners on the best practice obviously will come with time. Yeah, but
yes. Yeah, so that was what I was probably leading on to is how many healthcare practitioners do you think are open to prescribing it?
Okay, so I know there's a number, especially now with social media. You can catch up on doctors have got pages and podcasts, and there are some who are actually advocating. So there are a number that are open to prescribing and recommending medicinal cannabis for certain conditions.
Right.
So they're sort of just waiting for the legislation to open up, and they'll jump onto.
Fantastic. Now I want to just come full circle now and come back to your review paper, which I found a very interesting read. You in particular focused on topical cannabis products. So tell me why you think, topical use of cannabis is important.
Okay, I think so. It's been influenced again by the practices, the common traditional practices here, because of the psychotropic effects of cannabis. I think traditional leaders and divinists prefer the topical application because at least that way you avoid the systemic effects. So that was a starting point, and then, of course, research has been done. I think there is a lot of evidence out there in terms of the efficacy of medicinal cannabis in certain conditions following the topical administration of either the cannabis oil or even just isolates like the synthetic cannabinoids. Yeah, so there's evidence in terms of efficacy. And yes, my interest or my approach also has been influenced by how it's practiced back home.
Okay, so you've nearly got your master's degree in science. Are you going to go on to do a PhD? And would that maybe be in cannabis one day?
Oh, yes, definitely. That is the plan. Opportunity presenting itself, I would definitely like to go on and do my PhD and focus on topical formulations, so standardized topical formulations, assessment of quality, and of course the efficacy in various conditions. Of course, those that are characterized by inflammation or hyperproliferation of keratinocytes and melanocytes. So yes, that is the plan going forward.
That's fantastic. Well, if I had a crystal ball in front of me, I think that you're going to be one of the rising stars in the cannabis research field in Zambia in the not too distant future, Nakamwi. So look, thank you so very much for telling us a little bit about what's happening in your part of the world, and it sounds amazing. It sounds like, in a couple of years' time things are going to be up and running in Zambia, and I really look forward to following what's happening in your part of the world.
Okay, thank you so much for hosting me, Professor Kylie. Yes, indeed, there is a lot of work to be done. I think the position that practitioners need to take is that we have this wonderful plant at our disposal. Yes, there is the risk of the negative social impact. Okay, but we can still apply science and see how best we can maximize the benefits while minimizing the risk. It is possible to have it as a treatment option, because people will respond differently to certain treatments. Yes, there are effective therapies for all these conditions that I have mentioned that cannabis is being used for, okay, but people will respond differently to treatment. So it's always important to have treatment options, alternatives, so that we zero in on the best practice.
I totally agree with you. Well, again, thanks so much for your time. And viewers, we will see you at the next podcast. Thanks for your attention, everyone.